Story 1. The Voices in the Walls. I should have listened to my gut when I first walked through that house. The real estate agent kept apologizing for the smell, something about old pipes and poor ventilation. But it wasn't just musty air that made my skin crawl. It was the basement door. It stood slightly ajar at the end of the hallway, revealing nothing but impenetrable darkness beyond. Every time I glanced at it, I could swear I heard something, not quite breathing, not quite scratching, just presence. But the house was perfect otherwise, and I was desperate, fresh out of college, drowning in debt, and this place was the only thing I could afford within 50 miles of my new job. The previous owner had died suddenly, natural causes, the agent assured me, and the family just wanted it gone. I moved in on a Tuesday. The first week was normal enough. I unpacked, set up my minimal furniture, tried to ignore the way the basement door kept creaking open no matter how many times I shut it. Old house, I told myself. Warped wood, uneven foundation, perfectly logical. It was the scratching that started getting to me. Every night around 2:47 a.m., I know because I started checking the clock obsessively, I'd hear it. Long, deliberate scratches against wood like fingernails dragging across a coffin lid, always from below, always lasting exactly 13 minutes. I tried everything. Earplugs, white noise, even sleeping pills. Nothing worked. The sound seemed to vibrate through the floorboards, up through my mattress, directly into my bones. By the second week, I was a wreck. Dark circles under my eyes, jumping at every shadow, calling in sick to work. My friends thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was. That's when I decided to go down there. I'd been avoiding the basement since move-in, telling myself I didn't need the storage space. But standing at the top of those stairs at 2:45 a.m., flashlight trembling in my hand, I knew I couldn't keep living like this. The wooden steps groaned under my weight as I descended. My flashlight beam cut through air so thick I could taste it, metallic and stale like old pennies and forgotten breath. The smell hit me halfway down, decay and something else, something sweet and wrong. The basement was larger than I'd expected, stretching back into shadows my light couldn't penetrate. Concrete walls wept with moisture, and in the corner, an old furnace squatted like a sleeping beast. But it was the far wall that made my blood freeze. Scratches, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They covered the concrete from floor to ceiling in a chaotic pattern that hurt to look at. Some were shallow, barely more than scrapes. Others gouged deep enough to chip the concrete. They weren't random. There was intent behind them, desperation, and they were fresh. As I stood there trying to process what I was seeing, the scratching started again. But this time I could see where it was coming from. The wall itself was moving. Not the whole wall, just a section about the size of a person. The concrete rippled like water, bulging outward with each scratch. Something was inside the wall, clawing its way out. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Instead, I stepped closer, drawn by a horrible fascination. As I watched, fingers broke through the concrete. Gray, elongated fingers with nails worn down to bloody nubs. Then a hand, a wrist, an arm, impossibly thin and covered in what looked like concrete dust and dried blood. I was backing away when I heard my name. David! The voice was muffled like someone speaking through water. David, help me! It knew my name. How could it know my name? More of the thing emerged. A shoulder, part of a torso. The concrete around it crumbled like it was made of sand, and still, it kept calling my name over and over in a voice that was becoming disturbingly familiar. That's when I realized whose voice it was. It was mine. I ran then, taking the stairs 3 at a time. slamming the basement door behind me, but I could still hear it calling, still hear my own voice begging for help from behind that concrete wall. I didn't sleep that night or the next. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen, what it meant. The previous owner had died suddenly, the agent had said. Natural causes, but what if it wasn't natural? What if he'd discovered something down there? What if he'd tried to seal it away? What if he hadn't succeeded? The scratching continued every night, but now it was different. Louder, more frantic, and sometimes during the day, I'd catch glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision. A shadow that looked too much like a person, sliding along the walls, always just out of direct sight. I started researching the house's history. What I found made everything worse. 7 previous owners in 40 years, all single men. All had died suddenly, unexpectedly. Heart attacks, strokes, accidents. But there was something else, something the obituaries hinted at, but never said outright. They'd all been found in the basement, and they'd all been found with their fingernails worn down to nothing, concrete dust under what was left of them. I'm writing this now because I can hear it again. 2:47 a.m., right on schedule. But tonight's different. Tonight, the scratching isn't coming from the basement. It's coming from inside my bedroom walls. And the voice calling my name? It's not just mine anymore. It's 7 voices, all pleading, all desperate. All the men who came before me, all the men who thought they could solve the mystery, who thought they could help. My fingernails are bleeding. I don't remember starting to scratch at the walls, but I can't seem to stop. The concrete is softer than it should be, giving way under my fingers like wet clay. There's something behind these walls, something that collects us, one by one, trapping us in the spaces between spaces. And I think I understand now why the basement door always stood open. It wasn't trying to keep something in, it was trying to let something out. The scratching is getting louder. My fingernails are almost gone, and in the growing holes in my bedroom wall, I can see eyes looking back at me. 7 pairs of eyes, all terrified, all pleading, all wearing my face. If you're reading this, if you find this account, please, don't come looking for me. Don't buy this house. Don't try to help. Just run before you become the 8th. Story 2, The Thing in the Basement. I should have known something was wrong when the realtor kept apologizing. "I'm so sorry about the smell," she said, fumbling with air fresheners. "And the stains on the basement ceiling, just water damage. Happens in these old places." She avoided my eyes when she handed me the keys. "The previous owner left some personal items. You'll want to clear those out." The house at 1247 Maple Street was supposed to be my fresh start. New job, new city, new life after Sarah left me. The divorce papers were still warm in my briefcase, and this place was all I could afford on a teacher's salary. But standing in the kitchen on that first night, eating takeout Chinese from paper containers, I felt the house watching me. It started with the basement door rattling, not violently, just a gentle shake, like someone on the other side was testing the handle. I'd installed a simple lock when I moved in, nothing fancy. But every few nights around 3 a.m., I'd wake to that soft, rattling sound. The first time I investigated, flashlight in hand, I found scratch marks around the doorframe, fresh ones, deep gouges in the wood that definitely hadn't been there when I'd moved in 2 weeks earlier. Mice, I told myself, big mice. But mice don't scratch in patterns, and they don't stop scratching the moment you approach the door. I started keeping a journal of the sounds. Tuesday, 3:17 a.m., rattling for 30 seconds. Thursday, 2:45 a.m., scratching, then silence. Saturday, 3:33 a.m., something that sounded almost like humming. The breakthrough came when I found the loose floorboard in the living room. Underneath was a manila envelope, yellowed with age. Inside, Polaroid photographs, dozens of them. My blood turned to ice water. The photos showed the basement, my basement, but different, furnished. There was a bed down there, and restraints and tools I didn't want to identify. And in every photo, someone different. Men, women, young, old, all with the same expression of absolute terror. At the bottom of the stack was a photo of the basement door, but in this picture there was writing scratched into the wood. Words I recognized because I'd seen them every day for 3 weeks. Help me, please, still here. I'd assumed they were just old graffiti, maybe from kids who'd broken in over the years. But now, looking at the photo, I realized the truth was much worse. The writing was on the inside of the door. That night, I sat in my kitchen with a baseball bat across my knees, staring at the basement door. The lock held, but I could hear something moving down there. Not mice, something bigger, something that occasionally bumped against the door like it was testing its strength. At 3:33 a.m. exactly, the humming started again. It was a tune I recognized, Ring Around the Rosie, but slower, sadder, like a funeral dirge, and it was coming from directly below my feet. I'd had enough. I grabbed my flashlight, unlocked the basement door, and descended into the darkness. The humming stopped immediately, but I could feel something watching me from the shadows. The basement was empty, just concrete walls and a few boxes I'd stored there. But in the far corner, I saw something that made my heart stop. The wall was covered in scratches, thousands of them, forming words, names, dates. And at the bottom, in fresh scratches that looked like they'd been made minutes ago, Mike, November 2024. Below that, in smaller letters, number 24, I ran. I ran up those stairs faster than I'd ever moved in my life, slamming the door behind me and turning the lock. But as I stood there, panting, I heard something that made my blood freeze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming up the basement stairs. The door handle turned. The lock held, but I could hear breathing on the other side. Heavy, labored breathing like someone who'd been holding their breath for a very long time. Then a voice, barely a whisper. 23 wasn't enough. 23 was never enough. I spent the rest of the night in my car, doors locked, engine running. When the sun came up, I went back inside to pack. But the basement door was standing wide open. I hadn't unlocked it. On the kitchen table, I found a note written in my own handwriting, though I had no memory of writing it. Welcome home, Mike. The basement is so much nicer than you think. Why don't you come down and see? We've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for so long. I left everything. Clothes, furniture, my security deposit, all of it. I drove straight to the police station, but they found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No evidence of anyone in the basement, just an empty room with some old scratches on the walls. Stress, the officer said. Divorce will do that to you. Maybe you should talk to someone. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And sometimes, late at night, in my new apartment 3 states away, I still hear that humming. Ring Around the Rosie. Slow and sad and getting closer. Because the thing about basements is that they're not just places, they're hungry things. And once they've tasted you, once they've marked you as their own, distance doesn't matter. I got a package yesterday, no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo of a basement I'd never seen before, in a house I'd never visited. But there, scratched into the concrete wall, was my name. And below it, coming home soon. The humming is getting louder. The basement ghost A mother's terrifying escape. The air in our new house was thick with the dust of abandonment and the lingering scent of stale cigarette smoke. It had been my husband Mark's idea to move. A fresh start, he'd said, after everything. But Mark wasn't here, and the fresh start felt more like a burial. It had been 3 months since the accident, 3 months since I became a widow and a single mother to a child who still looked for his daddy around every corner. Little Leo, bless his innocent heart, was surprisingly resilient. He'd found a discarded soccer ball in the overgrown yard and was happily kicking it against the peeling paint of the garage door. I watched him from the kitchen window, a faint smile touching my lips, before the chill of the house reminded me of my task. This place was a mess. Every room whispered tales of neglect, but it was the basement that truly unnerved me. The previous owners had left a hoard of junk, a labyrinth of forgotten lives. Boxes stacked to the ceiling, old furniture draped in cobwebs, and the general feeling of something wrong. I'd been avoiding it, but the water heater was down there, and the cold showers were becoming unbearable. Armed with a flashlight and a heavy sigh, I pushed open the creaking basement door. The stairs groaned under my weight, each step a protest against my intrusion. The air grew colder, heavier, filled with the metallic tang of damp earth and something else, something subtly foul. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, illuminating grotesque shapes in the shadows. A broken doll with one eye missing, a deflated basketball, a stack of yellowed newspapers from decades past. I found the water heater easily enough, nestled in a corner amidst a collection of rusty tools. A quick inspection told me it was beyond my repair skills. I'd have to call someone. As I turned to leave, a glint of light caught my eye. Tucked away behind a stack of rotting planks was a small wooden chest, intricately carved. Curiosity, a foolish companion in such places, tugged at me. I knelt, brushing away the grime. The chest wasn't locked, and the lid lifted with a soft sigh of ancient wood. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was a single tarnished silver locket. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. It was heavy, strangely warm. I pressed the clasp, and it sprung open to reveal nothing. No faded photograph, no tiny lock of hair, just empty space. Disappointed, I was about to close it when I heard it. A whisper, so faint I almost dismissed it as the house settling. But then it came again, closer this time, like breath on my neck. "Mama?" My blood ran cold. Leo was outside, playing. I spun around, the flashlight beam dancing wildly across the shadowy corners. Nothing, just the oppressive silence of the basement. My heart hammered against my ribs. It had to be my imagination, grief, exhaustion, the stress of moving. I clutched the locket tighter and started back towards the stairs, my pace quickening. Then I heard it again, clearer now, from behind me. "Mama, where are you going?" It was a child's voice, soft and reedy, filled with a heartbreaking plea. I froze. This was no imagination. This was real. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to bolt up those creaking stairs and never look back. But something held me, a morbid fascination, a terror that rooted me to the spot. "Who's there?" My voice came out as a strangled whisper. A small, pale hand, eerily transparent, reached out from behind a stack of old tires. It was followed by a tiny, emaciated arm. Then a ghostly figure, no taller than Leo, stepped into the faint light. Its eyes, dark and hollow, stared at me with an unsettling intensity. Its clothes were old-fashioned, tattered, and it seemed to shimmer at the edges like heat haze. It was a child, a ghost. "You found my locket," the spectral child whispered, its voice resonating with an echo that wasn't quite natural. "I've been waiting." My breath hitched. Waiting? For what? My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Any explanation, but there was none. This was beyond anything I had ever conceived. "What do you want?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely audible. The ghost tilted its head, its hollow eyes fixed on the locket in my hand. "My mommy. She put me here. She said I was sick. She said she'd come back for me." Its voice broke, a child's sob trapped in an ethereal form. She never did. A wave of profound sadness washed over me, momentarily overriding my terror. This poor child, abandoned, left to linger in this cold, dark place. But then a new chilling thought struck me. "How long have you been here?" "A long time," it whispered, and a shiver ran down my spine. "Longer than you can imagine." Then its gaze sharpened, fixing on my face with an unnerving intensity. "You have a child, don't you?" I saw him. He plays outside. My blood ran cold. It had seen Leo. "He reminds me of my brother," the ghost continued, its voice growing eerily possessive. "He should stay with me. It's lonely here." My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It wanted Leo. It wanted my son. Number absolutely not. "No," I said, my voice gaining strength, fueled by a mother's fierce protectiveness. "You can't have him." The ghost's form flickered, its eyes narrowing. The temperature in the basement plummeted. "He needs a friend, someone who understands, someone who won't leave him." The last words were laced with a venomous accusation directed at me. "I would never leave my son," I cried, my voice echoing in the oppressive silence. "Never." A low, guttural growl emanated from the spectral child, a sound that was utterly unnatural. Its form began to contort, growing taller, more distorted. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light, the air filled with a suffocating dread. "You will," it hissed, its voice no longer a child's, but something ancient and hateful. "They all do, and then he'll be mine." Terror, raw and primal, finally broke through my paralysis. I screamed, a desperate guttural sound, and scrambled backwards, fumbling for the stairs. The locket, forgotten, slipped from my grasp and clattered to the concrete floor. The ghost lunged, its spectral hand reaching for me, long, translucent fingers stretching, grasping. I felt an icy cold brush against my ankle, a chilling caress that threatened to pull me back into the darkness. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, I launched myself up the stairs, taking two at a time, not daring to look back. The creaking of the old wood was deafening in my ears, mixed with the chilling whisper of the ghost echoing from below. "Mine. He'll be mine." I burst through the basement door, slamming it shut with all my might, fumbling for the rusty bolt and throwing it across. My lungs burned, my legs trembled, and tears streamed down my face. I found Leo by the garage, still happily kicking his ball. I scooped him up, clutching him to me, burying my face in his sweet-smelling hair. He looked up at me, confused by my trembling. "Mommy, are you okay?" he asked, his innocent voice a lifeline in the storm of my terror. I held him tighter, fighting back a sob. "Yes, baby, Mommy's okay. We're going home." We didn't stay another night in that house. I didn't care about the money, the fresh start, or anything else. We left everything behind, the furniture, the boxes, the chilling memory of that basement. But I knew with a horrifying certainty that I would never truly be free of it. Every creak in the night, every whisper of the wind, every shadow in the corner of my eye, I would always hear that chilling voice and the haunting promise of a child lost in darkness, forever waiting for someone to play with.